I was in a relationship with a murderer. I met my ex-fiance on Facebook. Yes, I done said it, Facebook. When I was still in varsity, he would always inbox me. Do you want to come work for me as a receptionist? And I just always think, this guy, what does he want from me? No, I'm fine. And at that point in time, I had my studies to focus on. I had a scholarship that gave me pocket money, and I was modeling. So I really, like, what do you want, my guy? So I would keep rejecting him. And this continued for about 3 years, where he'd always randomly just pop up, yeah, so I've got a position, and I'd always tell him, no, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm okay. So time goes, I finished my studies and I moved to Joburg for about a year. I go back home after spending a year in Joburg, and I decide that I'm going to start a business, a hair business. And I started posting about it, and lo and behold, who shows up? So he shows up and he inboxes me again. Oh my gosh, I'm realizing that you are doing this type of business. It's going to be a very lucrative business in the future. Can I be your investor? Did the girl not say, of course, I need the money, child? So I accepted, his proposal to invest in the business and sort of partner. And we had our first meeting, our second meeting, third meeting. I think by the seventh meeting, because it was actual business that was being discussed. I think by like the sixth or seventh meeting, guy had been reading me the whole time, figuring out what I liked, and he literally became that. He morphed himself into that. I first noticed signs of abuse when he started becoming physical with me. I know now that there was a lot of emotional abuse that happened before that. I just didn't know that emotional abuse was a thing, right? Because all these things that we are taught growing up when it comes to how a woman needs to carry herself in a marriage situation or a relationship so that she gets married to, or she's the chosen one. So there was a lot of emotional abuse, but I'd say at that point in time when I recognized, okay, this guy is abusive, was when we were coming back from Johannesburg, and he had accused me of flirting with a friend of mine, and he literally beat me down. Like, he beat me down, broke a glass on my head, and the irony was that I had a shoot the next day, and he didn't care about all of that. So I went to a photo shoot with strangle marks on my neck, and he didn't care. What was going through my mind during that time when he first laid his hand on me was that I must have done something wrong. Because remember, I had no way of identifying emotional abuse. So I didn't know that emotional abuse had happened. But when a toxic person interacts with you, they're not going to start by hitting you. They'll start with emotional abuse, so that by the time they hit you, you're already gone. You already think like, okay, this is my fault. And they make you feel like that. So I think the biggest thing that was going through my mind, I was in two places. The one side of me was saying, I need to leave. And the other side of me was saying, okay, what can I fix in this whole situation? And of course, I suppose the side that was asking, what can I fix, is the side that won, because I stayed in that relationship. And the rest of the relationship, I spent it trying to figure out, what can I change? What can I do right to make sure that he's always happy, not realizing that he's the problem. I think the longer I stayed there, the more he realized that, oh, so you're still here, then you deserve more bad treatment, type of thing. Because as much as yanga escalate, he would do things that are on the same level as the thing he did before. So for example, there was a point where, like I told you, he broke a glass on my head. There was a point where we were literally wrestling on the floor. There was a point where I can't remember what had happened, but he was hitting me with indwange mans, like while I was naked, like he was literally hitting me. There was a point where he hit me with his belt. So I wouldn't say during the relationship there was any sort of escalation. I think I realized after I left the relationship that, okay, this guy is crazy. And that's when he really put on the accelerator. So I was in the relationship for just under 2 years. And the point at which I decided to leave the relationship was when he started disrespecting my mother and my father. Saying things like, oh, your dad is only a stepdad. Your mother is a bag of poop. Like, sorry, what? You know? So I thought to myself, he had already done so much to isolate me from the rest of the family. And I thought, now you're trying to isolate me from my parents. Why? You know, and you're being disrespectful. And for me, it was like, if you're able to disrespect my mother and my father, and I actually stay in this relationship, with all the things that you've done already, you're clearly going to do worse to me. Should see I'm nothing to you, you know? And it was at that point where I decided that no, I'm going to leave. This is ridiculous now. I probably should have left this ages ago, but now it's literally reached breaking point where I'm dizzy. Yeah. The experience of trying to leave the relationship it was very hard, because even before that, there was a lot of leaving, going back, because I knew, like, my spirit knew there's something wrong here. Like, I'm not being treated well. I was losing myself. I felt like I don't deserve this treatment. So I'd leave, go back, leave, go back. That happened so many times. And at this point, I decided, okay, I am gone. I am leaving. I had asked a friend of mine to come pick me up. I packed all my stuff and we went. And then, again, because of the back and forth, I had gone back, but this time not to move in with him. I guess it was for closure. I don't know. Because he had just moved into a house that we had picked together, which was going to be the house we were going to live in after we had our white wedding. So I don't know, I guess he had convinced me to come back. So I was coming back from varsity and he called me or texted me, I can't remember, but he convinced me that he'd like us to talk about things. And, you know, so I was like, okay, cool. So he came and he fetched me. I am dying at that point. Like, I was so sick, I had the flu. And he fetched me, we got to his place. I literally slept when we got there because I was not okay. As soon as we wake up in the morning, first thing he says, are you up? I'm like, oh Lord, here we go. Here we go again. What am I doing here? So he says to me, we need to talk about this. So I say, okay, cool. And then he starts talking about my parents again and how I should have given him my money. And I thought, I'm not doing this. Can you please just take me back home? So as we walking out, he was walking in front of me and I'm waiting for him to open the kitchen door before we walk out. And he turns around and he punches me. I was so tired at that point emotionally that it's over. Like, okay, fine, awesome, you've punched me, now open the door. I think that upset him, that I'm actually, like, I guess she's really done. Like, she's really done with me. The flames of Gomorrah that I saw, guys. He took me and he choke slammed me to the floor, and Lapo, I'm not even fighting. I'm just like, okay, you know, do your worst. But when you're done, please take me home. So while I was on the floor, after he had, like, I guess I was just lying there, like, catching my breath. Then he started strangling me. So I was on the floor and he was strangling me, and I remember feeling like in Shiwai, almost like my spirit is about to leave me, and I became a bit limp, and he just let me go. And then I started breathing, and then he went to stand there by the counter. I guess he was panicking. I don't know what was wrong with him. That's when I realized that there was something wrong with my foot, and then I started begging him to please take me to the hospital, and he said, no, I'll call the ambulance. And then I had to be manipulative because I learned from the best. And I asked him to please take me, we'll get back together, we'll fix things. Nigga believed me, took me to hospital. Guys, he was Superman. My wife. I'm just like, this one doesn't know me. So we get to hospital, I have an emergency operation. And after the operation, I actually had him banned from coming to see me, which angered him. But the doctor told me that I've got such tiny bones that they didn't know where to put the metal plate and the screws, because there's so many of them, that they almost amputated. Like, that was an option, to actually amputate. And of course, I'm freaking out. But that same evening, because I had had him banned from coming into the hospital, my parents arrived the next day to come see me. And I could see that Dad was very angry. And Mom sort of was trying to stay calm, and look as normal as possible, because now this has happened to me. But then I asked her, like, what's going on? And then she told me that last night her car got burnt. So I got discharged. At some point I opened a case. I can't remember if the case was opened while I was in hospital or after I had left the hospital, but at some point I opened a case of assault. We started attending court. And he had also opened a case against me. This guy was crazy. So he had a case against me saying that I hit him with Vaseline on his head and he has a scar from it. And that was taken seriously. We started attending this court case and we had them parallel to each other, because there's my court case about Vaseline and there's his court case. He broke my ankle, is right there. And his mother, or at least at the time, I thought it was his mother, but he was in control of even people in his family, that I think he took his mom's phone to text me, to try and convince me to please drop the charges, and he will convince him. So basically, I thought this was the mother saying, please drop the charges and we'll tell him and convince him to leave you alone, right? But looking back, I'm now more than positive it was him. So at that point in time, my grandmother had passed away. I had just gotten out of this weird relationship. And I was so severely abused that I didn't even know who I was. My ankle is broken, and I'm just thinking, OMG, school, modeling career, a lot is going on. And now there's this court case that I have to keep attending. So when the mother approached me saying that, I thought, okay, well, this is one less thing to deal with. And of course, I then dropped the charges. When I tell you, it was like I switched on the on button of his crazy, because after that, he went to town with the crazy. And it was really bad. I was being stalked. I was being harassed. I lived a life of looking over my shoulder all the time. And I was in constant worry about my family. I just had this inkling that I've seen this guy go from bad to worse within the relationship, although it was like small steps. But of course, I didn't know the extent of what was to come, but I knew that we're not dealing with a normal person. I had applied for like 6 protection orders against him. The 6th one got granted, and the magistrate even said that this is a very rare occurrence, but I think he also recognized that my life was in danger. My ex was stalking me, harassing me, and just making my life very uncomfortable even after our breakup, because he genuinely thought that I was his possession. So how dare I leave, you know? So I need to now keep watch of what belongs to me. And I think that's the reason why he just continued to harass me and just follow me around and keep watch of wherever he thought I was, trying to find my whereabouts, because in his head, I was his possession, no different from his car or his watch. The stalking and harassment started right after I had dropped the charges that I had against him. And so remember, like I said, during that time, I lost my grandma, who was like my second mother, because that's the household I grew up in. And about 3 weeks later, my mom then passes away, and she passed away very tragically, and he was the main suspect for my mother's demise. I had to disappear after my ex sent me hitmen, where he was arrested because he had murdered a girl and burnt her body. We're just here to tell you that your mom has passed away.